here's a team that I don't see the vision one bit, but they have enough talent that I think they're going to win a few games. The Chargers. Obviously, the big headline was Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL to coach this team, and I think that was a great move. I think that was the right move, but I don't know if that's going to result in wins in year one. I think it might take a little while here because I just think their strategy for assembling this roster has been really, really bad. And now Justin Herbert's dealing with a foot injury. There's just the running backs are bad. The receivers are bad, or like at least unproven if you want to be generous. Now their offensive line is awesome. Like it's really good. So that is gonna help. But what do you make of this? I think this offense is if it wasn't for Herbert, they'd be right there with the Giants for me. Like I think this is horrible.
Yeah, so this team is weird because they feel kind of like the opposite of the Vikings in a weird way.
Yeah.
They have a
Yeah.
really good quarterback. They have an excellent offensive line. Probably, I would say the best in the league, honestly.
Really?
And
Okay.
I just think they're just really good overall. Like maybe they're not all pros, but like just having five solid starters is
Hmm.
more than enough to be a capable team. And we obviously know they're going to pound the rock because that's what Harbaugh did last year at Michigan, made their way to a national championship. And also Harbaugh, like we know he's a Super Bowl caliber coach. He has taken the Niners to the Super Bowl. He's taken them very deep into the playoffs multiple seasons in a row. Yes, obviously the league has changed a little bit by then, but I think his plan is to use this incredible offensive line and the run game, which I think will be more than serviceable. Although to me, Gus Edwards is more of a secondary guy. I think he's good enough behind this really good offensive line to help alleviate pressure off of Justin Herbert, and it's going to give them time to set the pass game up. And with a good offensive line as well, he's going to have time to get his ball to these young receivers, give them time to just like get better, improve, and hopefully that's how they're going to, kind of try to balance out the offense. So
Yeah.
kind of remains to be seen how well that works out. But I do see the vision offensively of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean they brought in Greg Roman, who's been a hardball guy forever. He was with Jim in San Francisco, then he was the OC with John in Baltimore, and he wound up getting fired because even though the Ravens produced, they come playoff time, the offense just didn't work. It was too ground and pound. They found a better, I think they found a much better balance last season. So this team's going to run the ball because everything that Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh, as you said, have proven in the past is that they want to run the football. So even though these running backs like aren't the best on name value wise, they're gonna run the football. So that's gonna require J.K. Dobbins, who's been hurt very frequently, unfortunately, his NFL career. He's gonna have to stay healthy and perform. Or Kamani Vidal, I think he's a fifth round rookie. He's gonna have to, stun everyone and be an RB1. Or Gus Edwards is gonna have a giant breakout in year 7 for him or something like that. So I just don't really see it. I think their run game will be like efficient enough. It may be like Denver last year, the way that even though Denver's backs weren't necessarily good, they still were like middle of the pack, moving the chains. This offensive line, my issue is, so they drafted Joe Alt, who was considered the best tackle in this draft. I mean, him and Olu were kind of back and forth, but I think most people thought Joe Alt. But like a lot of people viewed him as a left tackle, and yeah, him and Rashawn Slater together is like the best tackle unit in the league. But you had an opportunity there at 5 to get Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze. You got a franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. Get him a weapon. I mean, you traded Keenan Allen, you cut Mike Williams. Now he's got Josh Palmer's coming off an Achilles or an ACL, I forget which one. Lad McConkey, their rookie slot receiver, who I guess they just think is going to replace Keenan Allen. This reminds me of when the Titans traded A.J. Brown. And like, well, Treylon Burks is just the new A.J. Brown. It's going to be okay. That's not how it works. Keenan Allen is the best receiver in franchise history. He was there for a decade. Like, it's not just going to replicate itself overnight. DJ Chark was good 5 years ago. Like, we'll see. And then Quentin Johnston became a meme instantly in his rookie season. Mike, I think this receiving core is a joke, and I think Justin Herbert should be pissed.
Yeah, I do understand that these guys are young and they're going to develop, but I think the problem is that there's no solid proven number one guy because it should technically be Quentin Johnson, especially because he literally had all pressure was off for at least, well, I mean, because Mike Williams got injured, but a lot of pressure was off of him to be the number one receiver, even though he's a number one or first round draft
Yeah.
pick, because Keenan Allen and Mike Williams for part of the season were ahead of him. He should have really proven himself as the guy who could have taken that leap. Like trading Keenan Allen and getting rid of Mike Williams only would have made sense if Quentin Johnson had like 1,000-yard season or like 800 yards, because
Yeah.
then you could argue at the very least if he replicates having 800, 900 yards, then at least we have a solid, decent number one wide receiver. But he didn't do that, so it's
Mhm.
weird because they're really counting on a guy who was a third wide receiver and a second wide receiver for half the season to now be the bona fide number one, because you have Lad McConkey, who's and Brendan Rice too. He's also a rookie
Yeah,
too. Palmer, like you said, I like Palmer, but he's been kind of inconsistent due to injuries, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
DJ Chark also inconsistent. He just hasn't met the peaks of when he was in Jacksonville that last year. So I agree. And then also the tight end situation, who's supposed to be a quarterback safety blanket, they're like okay. I mean, they
Yeah.
have Disley and Hayden Hurst, who they're fine, but it's like very clearly like a run game heavy team. But
Yeah.
how often can you really sustain that all game? And you can't just waste Herbert back there. Like he's not just gonna hand it off like 20,000 times a game. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I got Herbert in the second to last round of my fantasy draft, and I was like, I guess I'll take him because I had Lamar, and I was like, whatever, I'll take what most people consider an elite quarterback, but like this offense just really scares me, and the fact that he's already dealing with foot injury, like I think Justin Herbert will elevate these guys. Like he is a great quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
but what does that look like? Like maybe they'll be better than the Raiders. Like I know you had them ahead of Vegas, but I actually think Vegas is better than this team because I think they're more well-rounded. If that's what you're competing with, like Justin Herbert's in, I think this is year 5, and that's what his mission goal for the season is: be better than the Raiders, be an 8-win team. Like, come on, I don't know, but maybe I'm being too critical because Harbaugh I think is a home run hire. I think it's exactly what you need when you have Brandon Staley. Like you gotta that's a complete 180 coaching wise. He's obviously got pedigree, but I don't know. I would have like Greg Roman. I just don't like that OC hire. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe come year 2, maybe this looks a lot better. But I don't like how it's shaping up year 1. Now on the defensive side of the ball, they brought in Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator from Michigan, so he came to the NFL with Harbaugh. I think that's exciting, but at the same time, first time NFL coach, we'll see how it goes. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa still there together as the edge rushing tandem. Both are getting older. But, Khalil Mack had a big season last year. He had several multiple sack games last season, had a bit of a bounce back year. Bosa's dealt with injuries. Derwin James is there, and, he's great, but he's also had injuries throughout his career. Do you think this defense can meet the standard of what Jim Harbaugh and the rest of that staff might have for it?
No, absolutely
No.
not.
Okay.
I'm honestly just not a fan of this defense. There's a handful of good guys, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. They're slowing down a little bit, but they're still very serviceable duo together.
Yeah.
I like that they brought back Denzel Perryman. I think that's going to help because their inside linebackers have been a huge liability for them recently.
Yeah.
I don't love their secondary because Derwin James just hasn't been the same player since those injuries, unfortunately. Christian Fulton, although he has a lot of just potential and he's shown a lot of talent, he's constantly injured and has often been noted by Vrabel last year, who's his coach, as being someone who doesn't try enough and has just been relying on talent. So that kind of concerns me. Asante Samuel Jr. I think is the only really bona fide consistent player, and even then he still has his issues of getting picked on sometimes just because he's a little shorter for an outside cornerback. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an issue. I don't know.
Is RFK going to save them? Robert Kennedy, the backup nickel corner. I'm sorry, I had to bring that up.
There's a few guys, but even then, those few guys who are still bona fide serviceable players, they're getting older and they've had a few injuries. So that kind of concerns me. I just don't love the defense. I don't think the defense is good enough to keep the pressure or help out the offense enough because, like you were saying, especially also Greg Roman has widely been panned as not a great OC. So you as the defense, you have to help the offense out, and it's supposed to be vice versa. But the problem is when both sides kind of have their issues, it's really going to be tough for this team to be a well-balanced team overall. And I think that's their biggest issue is that Sure, Justin Herbert's really great, but what happens when his receivers don't catch the ball and the defense has to come back out again? They're gassed. So like, I don't know. It's like a really tricky situation for this team.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you. I'm a little optimistic just because Harbaugh and Minter have been behind some really good defenses, and obviously Harbaugh not just at the college level but also the NFL level. But beyond those, top three, top four star level names they have on this defense, I agree with you. I don't think it's very proven. I don't think it's very deep. The pass defense was bottom five in the league last year. So yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be. I think they'll hold up against some lower level teams. Basically, with this team, you just have to hope for coaching. Like it's one of those things. Maybe like Brian Dable with the Giants when they made that playoff run. Like to me, this would prove Harbaugh is one of the best coaches football has seen on any level over the past decade or so. If he can get this team to be over 500, I'll never say a bad thing about Harbaugh again. Like I don't get this team. I don't think they made the right decisions besides who they picked as their head coach. And I don't think their head coach made the right hires for his coordinators. It feels like he just picked his guys, which I guess you have the right to do. But hey, that's not what I would have done. Maybe I would have kept Kellen Moore in town. Like I don't know. He went to Philadelphia, so
I would agree with the Kellen Moore comment. I think he's going to be great. I think Kellen Moore, honestly, if Sirianni's fired, he could be someone to watch for the Eagles head
yeah,
coaching job. But we'll talk more about the Eagles when we get to them eventually.
yeah. I'm excited to talk about them because they made a lot of positive changes, unlike the Chargers.